it's becoming more and more likely that people from New South Wales will be able to go to the UK, Paris, all around the world before they're able to cross the border into Queensland. Under British rules, for example, visitors from green list countries like Australia are not required to enter quarantine as long as they just have a negative COVID test 3 days before they arrive and then get tested a couple of days later. And we're expecting to see, Nicholas, flights between London and Sydney coming back as early as November, according to the Flight Centre boss. I mean, this is just a farcical situation. If you've got people in New South Wales being able to go to the other side of the world for a holiday, see family, but they can't drive half an hour and cross the border. Or I mean, that just, what are we doing?
I agree. It seems absolutely crazy. You can get a 20-hour long-haul flight to London, but you cannot get an hour flight or an hour and a half or so to Brisbane. I mean, of course, the nuance in all of this is not whether Britain, in this case, will let you in. They'll let Australians in at the moment. It's what happens when you come back. And so at the moment, you need to go into hotel quarantine for 2 weeks. And so it'll be, how are those quarantine conditions going to change? So I'd be interested in what you'd be prepared to cop here, Rita. So I think you'd probably prefer home quarantine over hotel quarantine. And then would you prefer staying at home for 2 weeks, or do you think something like 2 days or 5 days of home quarantining is about enough?
I think 2 days is more than enough. And if we actually have any plans of resuming our tourism industry, our international tourism market, we've got to just forget about this insanity of trying to get people to go into 2 weeks of hotel quarantine at their expense. No one's going to do that. The rest of the world's not making that requirement of them. And I think Australia and New Zealand, we're fooling ourselves to think that anybody who's coming here for a short period would submit to that. It's just unreasonable. I think if you're fully vaccinated and you come back, you get tested before you enter the country, get tested again a couple of days later whilst you've been self-isolating at home, and then you're free to, I mean, that's supposed to be living with COVID. If we're going to keep having these quarantine conditions, that's not really living with COVID.